Hey, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Cover Band Confidential podcast, the podcast for band leaders and cover band members to learn some new things and hear from some people who have screwed up enough times to maybe know what they're talking about just a little bit. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, this is Adam Johnson.
Here in Greensboro, North Carolina, Dan Ray. Great to be with you.
Did you play this weekend?
No, all rehearsals this weekend. You know, I think I mentioned last week I'm prepping for our first frat party, which is next Thursday night. A frat party from 11 to 1 on Thursday night. I guess those kids know how to party. But so we're trying out some new stuff. It's a rodeo themed party. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before. So we've added. We've done Folsom Prison Blues forever, obviously, but we've added Rawhide and Tennessee Whiskey, which has been on the bucket list. Obviously, you got to get to that one, but we added that for this show. So we're prepared for some cowboy action. Should be interesting.
So I haven't talked about this, and the band is kind of on hiatus for the foreseeable future, but I also play in a classic country group called Convoy.
Nice.
And our shtick was we wore the rhinestone suits like the nudie suits from like back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I've got a whole backlog of all kinds of stuff. So
that's great.
Maybe offline I'll share a couple of songs that you guys may want to look into.
Sure.
Because there's some good stuff for sure.
Yeah, it's got to be accessible to 19-year-olds, right? That's the challenge of this gig.
There's a couple of those. You probably aren't going to, you're not going to fill the dance floor up with Conway Twitty.
Right.
It's doable though, and we have done it quite a bit.
Yeah.
You want to get into a honky tonk and start playing slow hand.
Oh, yeah.
That dance floor will fill up.
Good stuff.
With some barflies.
Good stuff.
Anywho, want to thank all of the positive feedback we've gotten so far. Gotten a lot of really just kind of well wishes, and we've already started to get some reviews on the podcast. So you can check us out on iTunes. And one of the guys that hit us up is a guy named Tom Blair, who's a good friend of mine, who also runs a bunch of great content for working musicians. You should check out Blair Out Loud on Facebook as well as YouTube. He's got some really, really good stuff. And shout out to Tom, and thank him for the support. So I've got a goal. I checked on iTunes podcast and GigGab, which I think me and Dan both agree is, one of the best blogs out there best podcasts out there for what we do, has 18 5-star reviews with commentary. So I would like to get 20.
Woohoo.
And that's
Gauntlet Throne.
I don't, no. I'm not calling Dave and Paul out. I just want to see if I can, that seems like an attainable goal.
It does. I will say GigGab is a pretty amazing podcast. And it's, same for Cover Band Central podcast. Both are terrific. So it's great to be in that space with those guys. Yep.
And we actually had a good laugh about the episode that aired this past week on GigGab, talking about, marketing ourselves and being the premier this and the premier that. It's always important if you're going to put that in your name that it's not quantifiable. As long as there's not if there's not some sort of governing board that determines those roles, you can probably get away with it. That being said,
it still doesn't mean anything. It's a contentless word, but whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for contentless words, you can send $5 to the following PayPal account, and you can say that one of the guys from Cover Band Confidential gave you a whatever rating. We were giving funny reviews to each other.
Yeah.
The Clanky Lincolns give the best back rubs.
That's right. Well, we do. That's actually true.
Of course.
That's right.
So yes, continue to support. We could use some 5-star ratings and some good comments that would help us kind of spread the word. And since we're talking about some housekeeping stuff, Corrections Corner, the email that I sent out last week, confidentialcoverband@gmail.com, I had forgotten I had actually set up the correct one, which is coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. The good news is that since Gmail is so flexible, I've already forwarded all the old ones to the new address. So if you have any submissions, any suggestions for stuff you'd like to hear us cover, or gigs from Heck stories, you can send those. Yes. This is a family show.
Fair enough.
I have to check whether or not there's explicit content every time I upload.
Yeah.
I had to make sure that we are family friendly.
All right. Fair enough.
So yeah, you can email your submissions and good vibes and cookie recipes to coverbandconfidential@gmail.com.
One other thing about correcting last week, I corrected, hopefully, the audio issues I was having on my side last week. So there should be a lot less glitching, a lot less nastiness in my voice. I couldn't actually hear that noise as I was recording last week. So, but we will be vigilant about it. I think it's sorted out.
Yeah, we decided in the moment that it was probably more important for us to release something than to table it, since we had been kind of going back and forth on this a couple of weeks, and I just want to go ahead and get it out there. And I'm catching a rare pop every now and then, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. Good. So I consider it a non-issue.
Very good.
So what we are talking about today, whenever it is that you're listening to this, is starting a band. What do you do? What is there to consider? Sometimes we end up on the outs with a previous group and we're kind of on our own, or maybe we've got another guy that kind of thinks the same way that we do, and we want to do a project. And any time that kind of event happens, there's some stuff to consider. And we figured that would be a good, ideally, a first topic for this podcast. And
here we are starting our podcast. We may as well talk about starting a band.
It's true. And Dan and I have both kind of written about this fairly extensively. So I think we know a thing or two about a thing or two. So let's dive into it.
Well, I think the first thing is to resolve for yourself whether you're starting some kind of art project or whether the band you're starting is a business. Yep. I think that there are bands out there that are started because the players want to have fun. And that is super cool. I'm not knocking that in the slightest. It's completely valid. Then there are bands out there that want to have fun and make money. Yeah. Or have fun and make a little money, or at least the business side of it is part of the equation. And then there are bands like y'all and like some others that I know of that are money-making ventures. Fundamentally, they're about income. Plenty of players do this, and that's all they do, and it's their whole job. Yep. So your band is going to fall, when you start a band, it's going to fall somewhere on that spectrum. Yep. In my opinion, if it's purely an art project, that's one thing. And it could be you only ever imagine playing at neighborhood parties, or if gigging in a bar is just not ever what you think you're going to do, that's one whole thing. Yep. But if there's any plan at all to have any kind of payment for services rendered in terms of this band, you want to think of it in business terms. And it's always going to be both, right? There's always going to be the musical expression, and there's always going to be the business, unless it's pure musical expression. But if there's a hint of business in it, you got to think business-like about it, because otherwise things get weird. Mm-hmm. Things get weird. So, and genre's like right at the heart of that question: what kind of music you're going to play? There's music that you love. There's music that you grew up with. There's music that you love to play, and then there's music that people want to actually pay you to hear, and those might not be the same thing. Yeah, I don't know how many corporate metal bands there are. Exactly. So it does play into that, and yeah, the whole discussion of art intersecting commerce is a loaded one. And absolutely. Now, for you, members only, you're an 80s kid, I presume. Yep. Yeah. So I was born in September of 81. So MTV had aired roughly 3 weeks before I was born, and so I never lived in a world where MTV did not exist. And that's kind of like one of the things. We were born and raised on this stuff. Yeah. I mean, I was born in '74, so I was already sort of active and aware of music by the time your genre hit. But that makes it my stuff, that makes it my home.
Right.
Frankly, I'd play in an '80s tribute band, '80s shtick band, and be completely thrilled about it. Unfortunately, like you've found, that's one of those genres that has great overlap between, man, I love this music, and hey, people will actually pay for it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, for us, and it's kind of one of the things that you do need to consider if you are looking to make it a money making venture is what are you selling? And for us and a lot of bands like us, we are selling we're selling nostalgia.
Yes.
So we're selling a memory, we're selling a feeling that we're trying to tap into with the people that we are playing for, and it's a good market.
Yeah. One of the things to consider when you consider genre is what's out there in the market.
Yep.
The world, I don't know about anywhere else, but where I play, the world does not need another classic rock cover band.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we put the Clanky Links together, we were pretty deliberate about, we'll do some classic rock. I mean, my co-frontman Justin is a Stones dude. I'm a Floyd guy. We both love the Beatles. We cover that stuff, but we're also much broader and much, we do stuff that really makes us sound different from what's out there. And a lot of that is genre choice. Yeah.
And I think that's true. But on the same note, there's always a way to turn something on its head and make it interesting.
Well, that's true.
So I'll just throw this out, talking about, another classic rock band. There is a group out of, I believe it's Los Angeles, called the Wayward Sons. And the Wayward Sons are doing basically classic rock and arena rock, but they're doing it in a period correct fashion.
Huh.
So I don't know if you've ever seen the Long Road to Ruin video that the Foo Fighters did.
Yeah.
With the feathered hair and the mustaches, they look like that. And they're really, really good. It's kind of, it's like a heavier version of what Yacht Rock Review does in the Atlanta market, which is, polyester suits and aviators,
right.
Doing smooth hits of the 70s and 80s, and just absolutely crushing it. But the Wayward Sons have done that as well. And there's always a way to kind of put a spin on it. But if you're just going to go out there and, do Stones and that kind of stuff, you need to have an angle.
Yeah.
Cause you're just going to get, you're going to get swallowed up by the other groups that are, playing the stuff that you're playing.
Yep.
So on that related note, who are you playing with and who are you playing for? What is your target market? What kind of gigs are you looking to do? Most of the time, if you got in a room with the guys in your band, and you're kind of envisioning, like, where do you see you guys playing? What are the venues that are on your list of, like, stuff that places you could play now versus places you could play in a year or two and kind of down the road? Like, what are those goals? What are the things that you would like to accomplish? Like, that's one thing to think about. Also, if you're looking at the venues you want to play at, you need to also pay attention to their clientele. What is the demographic? What is the age range? What is the income level? What kind of music do the people that frequent those places like to hear?
I booked a gig at a fairly new bar in town. It's been there a while, but it's got new ownership since the first of the year. I asked what kind of music they mostly do there, and she said, mostly Southern rock. Okay. We don't do any Skinnerd, and I said, listen, we skew a lot more pop than that. And she said, well, all right, that's fine. We like to mix it up. We like to shake it up. Okay. And I said, okay, I appreciate that, but you should just know we need to make sure your audience knows what they're coming to.
Well, also that, but you also need to make sure that the venue knows that. Yeah. That the person in charge agreed to.
That's right. That's right. Well, unfortunately, the owner and the manager, they were all standing there. They were all part of that conversation. So I didn't have to worry about so much about that. But you better believe when I'm starting to make my set list for that show, I'm going to have that in my mind. I'm not going to do Feel It Still.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to start leaning, towards your, we've got the all killer, no filler sets,
Yeah.
We know what's going to make every single show. Yeah. And then, there's a lot of kind of, if we're playing a public event, we'll throw this, and this in. And if we're playing a bar event, we'll throw this, and this in. So that's definitely something that, well, we were going to talk about set list orientation. That's a totally
whole
different
big topic. That'll be episode 5 or something. Yeah. But to be sure, playing for this frat party next week, I'm pulling out all my vapid chick rock. I've got just all of it. I can't think of
your woo girl playlist.
Oh, it's the fully the white girl party playlist. And so that's part of what the market is. Your market is going to drive your genre selections and your song selections. And if you are resistant to that, that's cool, but consider you're leaning toward art project instead of business.
Yep.
Also, still fine, cool, totally good. And there's probably a market out there for your art project, but
it may not be as wide as.
Yeah, it won't be. It won't be. Yeah. It won't be. But a business choice in this thing is going to be about seeing what the audience wants to hear and playing that, and having your feelings about that be. Because look, I'm never going to sit down and choose to listen to Play That Funky Music, White Boy.
Nope.
But I play it at every single show.
And it works.
It crushes every single time. Because when people are out, and they all think it's cheesy, they all think it's lame, but when the dance floor is bumping, that's what they want to hear.
So we've got a 90s event coming up, and I'm trying to go through the playlist, and there's so many songs that like I'm a little gun shy to add to the list. The two that jump to mind are Smooth, featuring Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20.
Absolutely.
3-time Grammy Award winner Carlos Santana from the album Supernatural, released in 1999. You have to say all of those things when you reference that song. You can't just say Smooth. And then also like Smash Mouth, Anything. Personally, I think Walking on the Sun is one of the coolest songs ever written.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
But it was written by Smash Mouth, and that can be a problem for people.
Yeah.
So that would be a fun discussion we may have offline.
Yeah.
Dan and I are, there should be like a podcast within this podcast of just the stuff he and I need to talk about.
We could do like a making of. We could do like a meta podcast.
Yeah. So now we're going to start the podcast within the podcast. So we'll start a new set of music that starts right now. It's playing.
Ooh.
And then,
it's podcast-ception.
Yes. And then after we fall asleep, we'll do the third podcast, and then it'll be done.
We have to go deeper.
Oh my gosh. We have totally fallen off. Anywho.
We actually had a plan for what we were going to talk about in this podcast, folks.
No, we totally did. And I would say, just to keep the conversation going, if you go on to coverbandconfidential.com, there's a great article called Why You Should Know Your Audience that was done by a great guest writer from a band called the Kilt Lifters, who are out of Hawaii. I'd love to go take a field trip there and pick that guy's brain for a little bit.
Seriously.
And also on the Clinky Lincoln's website, there's a great article, and I may cross post with Dan's permission. Sure. It's called 6 Bar Band Audience Members and How to Reach Them. That is a fantastic article.
Thank you.
That is pretty universal, not necessarily just bar band audience members, but lots of other type of events that those things pertain to. So if you need some reading at work, you should definitely check both of those out. And I will include those links in the show notes. So we've gotten our genre figured out. We're going to be a business venture, and we know who our market is. What's our shtick? What's the thing that we're going to do that, kind of sets us apart? And most of the time, shtick's going to be visual. What's the thing that you can put on a flyer or in a promo shot and or a video, and somebody takes a look at you and they go, "Oh, I get it." That is one of those things I don't think a lot of people think about. I think most people who are doing just the general cover band gig, they're showing up, they're dressed in the way that they were dressed that day, or maybe they put a shirt on, a different shirt, and then they go and they play their show, and they stand there and they play the songs, and they don't really give much thought to it. But if you are trying to differentiate yourself from your competition and trying to make an impact with potential clients and bar owners and your audience, you got to give them something, whatever that might be. It could be a really cool light show. It could be special effects. It could be one of the guys in the band knows how to do a backflip, and you figure out how to put that into the show. Maybe you guys all wear certain kind of outfits or matching sunglasses. Like there's typically from a shtick standpoint, there's got to be certain things that tie the band together as a cohesive unit. And I would say there's a couple other links that I had talked to or I talked about, which is you should probably go out and see what your competition is doing, take notes about what to do, maybe what not to do, and use that as fuel to kind of mold your group into what you want them to be. And also trying to come up with, fresh, creative ways of, packaging. What do you think, Dan?
Well, it's interesting. Members Only is a much stickier band than the Clanky Lincolns, in as much as you have a theme era and you dress appropriate and your show is a little bit like a DeLorean pulled up and you stepped out of the 80s. The Clanky Lincolns, I'm a little torn about how to answer this, because on one hand, no shtick is a shtick.
It's true.
Right? But a shtick is kind of, it implies that it's a deliberate choice. Mm-hmm. You have one of the topics we're going to discuss, and we may bump into it in this conversation, or we may save it for another time, is branding.
Yep.
In branding, we say you always have a brand, whether it's on purpose or not. And if not, that's probably bad news.
Yep.
A shtick is more deliberate than that. It's more intentional. And, with the Clanky Lincolns, we dress appropriate to the venue. And in some venues, that means jeans and a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. We deliberately want to be very accessible. We don't want people to feel like we're somehow distant from them. We actually really love playing where there's no stage. We love playing on the floor. I may change my tune about that after this frat gig, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But generally in bars, we love playing on the floor, and Justin and I both play wireless guitar and mic, and we spend a lot of time out in the audience dancing with people and singing with people and putting them on the mic. And not that we'd ever give up the mic, but sing along with them. Yeah. And that is the shtick for us. We are just regular guys who are there to party and having a great time. And you wouldn't look at us and say, in fact, walking in, you wouldn't think we were the band. Mm-hmm. But the minute we take the stage and the minute we start to engage the audience, it becomes really clear who we are is all about that engagement and that connection. And we're throwing the biggest party ever and everyone's invited. And that's pretty much the shtick of our band.
And for us, for an 80s band, I would consider us fairly low shtick. The main reason being is that for a lot of 80s bands, there's a costume component and like a wig component. And we don't really do that. The whole idea behind our deal is that it's a cohesive look. And so when you walk in, I've always liked the mentality of a band walking in and looking like a gang, like immediately, like there's a visual component that's like, oh, these people are here together and they're a cohesive unit.
They're like up to something.
Right. Our goal was I had always said that we were supposed to kind of look like an 80s version of the T-Birds from Grease. Black jeans, black jackets, just a cohesive look that it shows, okay, well, this is what the band is doing. And it translates across, public events, bar gigs, weddings. It all works. Right. But yeah, we're not doing, mohawk, purple wigs and costume changes in the middle of shows and that kind of thing. It's more just we also have what I would call moments in our show. Other people may call it choreography, but choreography is a bit more rigid. But there's like moments where the band is doing a certain motion in unison, but it's not constant. It's kind of just a thing just to kind of draw visual attention. And those are all things that, can develop over time. And there are moments that, show that the band is a unified group and that you've taken some time and put some effort into your live show.
Right.
But I have definitely seen groups that take it to the nth degree. And for better or worse, some of those are some of the best cover and tribute bands out there. But it's not 100% necessary to go, to go that far.
Right. Yeah. The Spasmatics come to mind, right?
The Spasmatics definitely have, there's a local group, shout out to the Geeks in Atlanta, who also are an 80s band that do kind of what the Spasmatics do. They actually do it in a more colorful, creative, kind of high energy way. So, props to those guys. But there's also bands like, Jesse's Girl NYC. Holy smokes. Those guys, if you should go to their website and watch their videos. Like, first time I saw those guys, I wanted to quit. Like, take the website down, just game over. Yeah. It's so good and so slick. And yeah, everything about that is, they've been kind of my goal and model ever since I discovered them. So, and there's bands probably in your market that are doing that kind of stuff as well. And, they can be a good source of inspiration.
Sure.
For good and bad. So, always make sure that you know what you're up against, and do that research, do your homework, because, there are probably other bands in your town that are doing that. So, be on top of it. So moving along out of the shtick land, we're kind of getting down to, to brass tacks. We're getting down to, the details. How many people are going to be in this band? Can you afford, a certain lineup? What's feasible for the money that you're looking to make, and for the musicians in your circle? Can you afford to have a keyboard player? If you want a horn section, can you get one? Are there enough, is there a horn section in your town that you can leverage? A lot of these things are kind of under, the need of necessity. There's not a whole lot you can do in some of those circumstances. So, make those determinations based on what you can, and think creatively. And, if you got to run a lean and mean operation, go for it. I've seen some great trio cover groups that, cover all the ground that they need to cover, and don't need the extra people. And I've also seen 8 to 10 piece groups that just are crushingly good. It's got everything to do with that band utilizing their members to the best of their ability, and selling the product. So, if you can only find 3 dudes, go for it. There's room for you. One of the, on Gig Masters in our area, there's one band. It's like the highest grossing band in the Atlanta area is a trio.
Yeah.
Guitar, bass, drums. And, they're working they're working their tails off, and they're making good money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'll say this about the size of a band. In my view, and I've never been in a thing bigger than 5, but it seems to me that the more people you have, the more opportunity you have for it to be absolutely amazing. Especially when you bring in things like horns and keys. And there's a band I know and love. They're mostly an originals band called Viva La Muerte here in Greensboro, and we're actually opening for them in April. And they are an Americana jam band, Dead inspired. Every time I see them, they've got like 2 more people. They now have a trumpet and a sax and a banjo and 2 guitars, and it just keeps getting bigger. Their bass and their like rhythm section is incredible, and their lead singer and songwriter is a genius. But like every time they add something to the show, it adds this whole new piece of flavor and this whole new piece of character. And as I've talked to him about that, his name's Matt Armstrong, he's a friend of mine, the frontman of that. He's really enthusiastic about bringing people in and having them work with them. But the more people you add, the more schedules you got to coordinate, the more space you need in the rehearsal room, the more likely it is you got to rehearse in sections because so-and-so can't make it this night and that person can't make it. The more coordination and organization and the more it takes, the more humans you add. Humans are notoriously tricky to wrangle. And the more schedules you need to deal with and personalities you need to deal with and just stuff people go through, the flu seasons you need to deal with, the harder it gets, right? So there is that trade-off.
Just make sure your bass player is properly vaccinated.
Exactly.
And bring them in the winter. It gets cold. If it's cold, they're cold. bring them inside.
That's right. Don't leave your bassist outside. Absolutely.
Don't leave in hot pants either in the summer.
Yeah. Don't leave the drummer in the car.
It's important.
Yeah.
We're just kidding. Yeah. We love bass players and drummers. You guys make the world go round.
Really?
Just some slight ribbing.
Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great thing to, especially as band leaders, you've got to, how big of a band you want definitely plays into how much you're willing to put up with.
Yes.
So yeah. We kind of delved on this a little bit, talking about the appearance. Appearance can kind of relate to a number of things. We were talking about clothing and style. Members Only has a look that we have kind of put together. It's Chuck Taylors or Vans, black jeans. We have these custom 8-bit tuxedo T-shirts in black and white.
They're so cool.
I ended up having to get them designed because there was a company that made them but didn't make them the way that I wanted them. So I had to fork the money over to get it done the right way.
And I'll tell you this about those shirts. They're so great and so unique. I had seen them on your website somewhere. Mm-hmm. I don't know, somewhere along. I knew there was this really cool band that did this 8-bit tuxedo T-shirt. So cool. And that was long before I had connected with you or knew you or anything, but it was still in my head. I still knew it was like out there as this awesome thing. And then a week ago, I realized, oh my God, that's, you're the band. That was so cool. They really are great. And really, they speak to the ethos of your band in a way that's really perfect.
Kind of like, quoting Talladega Nights is like, I always picture Jesus in a tuxedo T-shirt, which says, and this is basically what, our entire deal is. I'm formal, but I'm also here to party.
Right.
That's definitely, the mindset we're going to.
Yeah. And it's 8-bit, so it says 80s loud and clear.
Exactly. And then, black Members Only jackets, obviously. It's funny when we get off stage and people go, what's your band's name? And we go, Members Only. I mean, it's on our kick drum. I'm like, oh, like the jackets. And I'm like, yeah, I'm wearing it right now. Yeah. We all are. And then we were Wayfarers on stage. I'm very pro sunglasses on stage for musicians for a litany of reasons, but that is an aesthetic choice that we have made, and I stand behind it.
Very nice. Very nice. And then we pretty much, when we do a bar gig, we are dressed like ordinary guys, mm-hmm. and that is our ethos. And it's, we try to stay away from torn up clothes. It's like a nice jeans and T-shirt.
Yeah.
but
dress for the job you want, right?
We're there. We're going to blend in. We're going to be your buddy. People want to hang out with us and want to come back to our next show because we're just that guy. We have designed a look that we use at more formal corporate and party gigs that we call rock and roll semi-formal.
Nice. I like it.
Which is like, jeans and a shirt and a tie or a vest or, it's just tweaked a little bit. We're not in suits, but so we still look like the band, but it's clear we aren't, we didn't just get dragged in. We actually got dressed up for this. So those are our kind of two looks right now, bar look and rock and roll semi-formal. Well,
and beyond what the band is wearing on stage, the appearance is kind of a full deal.
Oh, sure.
It's not just what you wear, it's what the stage itself looks like. So things to consider there. What's your instrumentation? Are there certain guitars or instruments that you could play that fit that aesthetic better? I bought a Steinberger because I play in an 80s band, darn it. And, and I bought it, thinking I will use this for the gig and, I don't really care how it plays. It'll get the job done. That is hands down my favorite guitar. I've got guitars that cost 5 times as much as that one. But if I'm just sitting down, I'll pick that one up. I really, really like it. It's a great playing guitar and, they're pretty affordable. If you're not getting the original Newberg, Steinbergers, but the import ones, I got one for like $150 and it's like my favorite guitar.
Great.
So
I'll tell you, I love cheap guitars. My first guitar that I gigged with was a Japanese Strat knockoff that I got for $80 at a pawn shop. And the thing about it that is awesome is it's got this metallic flake red paint on it. And it just looks amazing under the lights. And then I grew up. I mean, that was high school. I grew up and I felt like an $80 guitar didn't do it for me anymore. So I went through some other things. Right now I'm playing an Agile LP knockoff that's a gold top. And again, the shiny, reflective, metallic, it just really works. And it's so great, actually. I'm thinking about taking my old red. It's hanging behind me. Tanaka is the name of the brand, which I've Googled. It doesn't exist. That's not a thing. It sounds Japanese. I don't know. And the electronics are poor, and it's all, there's shorts in it and everything. But I have a really great tech that I'm thinking about taking it to and getting cleaned up and turned into a real guitar, because it's so great to play. And somehow my hands have never quite felt right on anything else. So I'm thinking I may end up playing some weird Japanese random guitar.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then also, about stage setup, we have made the choice. Now, in previous bands, I was in a group that was endorsed by Orange Amps. And so part of our look was the fact that there were 2 honking orange stacks on stage.
Nice.
And that was the look. And man, it was an awesome look. But I don't want to have to carry that thing to every single gig.
Exactly.
And so a little over a year ago, we opted to go ampless. So we have no amps on stage. Yeah. And that's a part of our look. The stage is super clear. We have our backline is literally a drum set and a keyboard. If we have the keyboard player on that gig, and the rest is just free reign, just to run around. It's awesome.
It's pretty great. We're ampless too. It's the best. It's really the best.
I know there's a lot of purists out there that don't like hearing that, but if you got in-ear monitors, it really doesn't matter. It sounds so good.
Well, now so at some point, just to put a bug in your ear for later, we need to talk about in-ear monitors, because you and I have different views on them.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting conversation.
Yes, as in I think in-ears are awesome and you are wrong.
Well, I might be. I'm willing to have my mind changed. I imagine they're great for a lot of people. I just can't quite figure out how they'd work for me. So I think that's a conversation that a lot of people are probably having. So I think it'd be interesting for us to go through that one of these episodes.
I'm actually wearing mine right now to monitor, and
very good.
So much clarity. Yeah. And it's right inside my head. And I'm not, irritating my wife too much. Hopefully she's in the other room watching The Crown, would be my guess. That's her Netflix of choice when I am busy. But yeah, so the whole, but your band's look might be, a 12-piece drum kit and, 2 full Marshall stacks and an Ampeg fridge. And that's a look, and it's a good one.
It is. There's a reason they made all those fake, stack fronts. It's a great look.
It is a good look. And unless you're Slayer, and Slayer just brings the whole things out, man, they don't care. Just Marshall, just cabs, just one right after the other, all cinched together, and man, it looks awesome. We've opted to use, we've got giant Rubik's cubes that we put on stage where the amps would be. And we're also going to order some stage banners and stuff that kind of tie the branding together. So at places where we need to fill up more space or just need, a little more brand awareness, we could do that. But yeah, that's what we have decided to do. And it sounds like a weird conversation to have. And I've definitely seen some tricky conversations on the CBC group that, if you want to play in my band, you have to have an ampless solution, period. That's not up for negotiation. This is what we have decided on. And I know that there are certain drummers who, won't play E-kits, and we're not quite at that point, but there are plenty of bands that are like, if you want this gig, this is what you got to have. And we are one of them. Yeah,
I would not if I needed a new guitarist, I would need them to go direct.
And on that note, since we both kind of alluded to the fact that we tend to make our decisions on behalf of the group, what's your team organization look like? Is there a band leader? Are you that band leader? Is someone else? Are you guys a democracy? Or is it more of, like you had said in the first episode, the benevolent dictator model, where you make the decisions, but you always make sure that you are making those decisions for, in the best interest of the guys that you're playing with?
Well, yeah. And also, for us, like I said, I do most of the booking, or at least I'm very involved in it. Some other guys have done some. I've done all of our design and marketing and online presence and things like that. When it comes to stuff like song selection, we're very democratic. I lay out some choices, and other people lay out some choices, and then we put them in. We go into the room and we try them out, and we're pretty dispassionate about cutting things that don't work. We don't let things linger too long. Maybe one or two rehearsals. If something's not coming together, there's just plenty of songs out there. We don't need to beat our heads in about something that's not happening. But suggestions come from everybody.
Yeah, I mean, for me, suggestions are always welcome. Sometimes I send a list out. Hey, let me know your thoughts, and I don't get anything back. And I was like, all right, well, I will make those decisions. And the guys in my group aren't beholden to this band, and they've got other projects going on, so I get it. But if everybody in your band is that way, and there's nobody in charge, then things aren't going to get done. So whether you determine a band leader or one kind of shows themselves through the situation, it is a good idea to have somebody who has the final say. It'll make things a bit.
Yeah. Now you started
smoother,
members only explicitly. You're it for that band. It's your project.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I hire my guys out basically.
Oh, gotcha. So they're all one-offs, or do you have standing people?
No, I mean, we've got a core lineup. We have an A squad and a B squad basically.
Gotcha.
And not B in the sense that, their B is a lower level product. It's just, we have guys that, play the majority of the stuff, and we have guys that are, considered subs, and, that changes from year to year. So, sometimes, one guy will have the upper hand in booking, and then other times, based on a number of factors, the other guy might end up being the first call. So, but there's definitely, I've had a lot of one-offs. I don't recommend it. It's not fun for me, and I'm assuming it isn't always fun for them. So we're hitting. Let's see, we're right around 45 minutes. So. You want to do?
Well, listen, I got one other thing. Just one other thing that happened today. I dealt with it today, so it occurred to me as a good thing we might think about is how your band is going to get together, how you're going to rehearse, where you're going to rehearse, how often you'll be together, that sort of thing. That comes up because when we first got started back 9-10 months ago, I found on Craigslist this place that was renting rooms to bands, and it was an old office building, and it had one hallway with doors all down it, and every room was a band practice room, or there were some music teachers. There's a voice teacher and a bass teacher who had rooms in there, and we were calling it the band dorm because it felt very dormy. And it was okay. It was fine. It was it cost not a lot, as these things go. It was $175 a month. And so we split that out of the first gig we played in the month, and it's all been fine. But the owner of it is a guitar player, not really a landlord. So care of the place is marginal. And I hate to be a snob. And that's not true. I love to be a snob. The room next door to us got occupied by a thrash metal band. You know, the band that Cookie Monster is the front man?
You mean all of them?
Yeah. So this is the one. They are next door to us. We actually call them Cookie Monster. And nice. It's brutal trying to practice with them doing that next door. It's really, God love you. If that's your genre, more power to you, but it's really not mine.
Oh man, I love that stuff. Actually,
yeah. All right. Well,
I do.
I gotta say, more power. I do. It's not my tempo. So we were kind of looking at other places to go, and then we got a note under the door that said, "Hey, the building's being sold. You got 60 days to get out." Which
we've been to that too.
Yeah, made our decision for us. So today I've been looking for an office space or unused retail space or unused warehouse space or something because I want to store all of our equipment there. I really want a monthly lockout. I don't want to carry everything home and take it back and set up every rehearsal. There is a thing around here and probably around a lot of places that storage facilities will rent out rooms to bands, but they all tend to be outdoor access, not climate controlled, and I'm just not going to store my stuff in a room that's going to get hot and cold like the outdoors. It just doesn't work.
Yep.
So today on Craigslist, I found the place that actually is a fairly new facility, a storage facility that has indoor rooms, climate controlled with power and lights, and they're welcome. Happy to have bands there, which a lot of them are sketchy about that. I guess you get a lot of miscreants and whatnot when you have musicians around. So just today, I went and booked this new thing. I got to move us over the weekend, but it was $5 more for about twice as much space, and it's way less sketchy than this other joint was.
That is what you call a deal.
It was a deal all the way around. And but that's the thing you got to think about. Are you going to practice in your living room? Are you going to, I mean, if you like you and me, Adam, we have kids, yeah. So practicing at home doesn't work that great.
Not so fast. We
okay.
do.
Well, I wondered. Go ahead.
We rehearse at home because we are a band that runs everything direct and use in-ear monitors. I can take our front of house rig, and we've got a set of Elisa's drums downstairs, and we can rehearse as late as we want, as long as we want. And the only thing is, you can hear it's like the weirdest a cappella show you've ever seen.
I'm sure. And the drums are flapping in the background.
Yeah, just a lot of slapping noises and 3-part harmonies.
Yeah.
But
all right, well, that might kind of sell me on in here. So I appreciate that.
We had another section about talking about the founding stories, but we're running. We're close to an hour, so we'll go ahead and call it at this, and maybe we can touch on that a different time, or maybe do a mini-sode at some point and just cover that. So anybody who's interested can do so. But want to thank everybody for tuning in, and again, if you want to contribute or you have some ideas for some stuff, email us at coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. Like and subscribe to our podcast. Give us good reviews and 5-star ratings. We would be super appreciative. Any final words?
Well, we need obviously some great thing to say at the end, like the boys over at Gig Gab do, but we haven't come up with that yet. So just keep rocking.
And don't fill up on bread.
Don't. That's right. That's how they get you.
Yep. Maybe that'll be our tagline.
Fill up on bread.
From Atlanta, Georgia, this is Adam Johnson.
Greensboro, North Carolina, Dan Ray.
This has been the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, Episode 2. You guys have a good week, and good luck this weekend out in the clubs.